Yeah, man. Outside of doing ministry, I do a lot of soccer work.
Yeah, you do. Not just soccer, you
Yeah,
kind of crush it a little bit at the soccer work. We're a little successful.
We do a little something. We do a little something.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that space. It's
Right
a
on.
passion of mine. But one of the things that I've experienced in the whole soccer arena, and it's not unique to our club, it happens in all clubs, is we have to pay more attention to setting up the right culture so that we're making sure that we're not bypassing any player.
Right.
And sometimes as coaches, we just come into it because we think all we got to do is train and all we got to do is coach and win games, right? But we're not really paying attention to the countenance of all the players. We think it's a team, so we just train a team. And just because it may appear as a team to a coach doesn't mean that a player might not be feeling like a minority.
Right.
Minority doesn't necessarily mean that it's a person of color, which is one aspect. But it could be a player that is an introvert and doesn't know how to connect. Maybe they don't feel like their appearance is the same, or their economic status isn't the same, or they got some crazy parents who they bring that energy to the field and they're automatically disconnected because they're trying to remember everything that mama and daddy were just punching on them, about. And so, as I've shared with the club, it's really important that we teach coaches how to pay attention, right? And how not to misinterpret. So just because a player, you may be giving instruction and maybe they're silent, doesn't mean that they're not listening or they're not learning, right? Or doesn't even mean that they have an attitude, okay? Just because they may not be executing may not mean that they're not capturing the skill. Right. It might mean that they're carrying something that you have no idea what they're carrying. Right. And so it's important for us to not only teach coaches how to pay attention, because if they don't do it, then the rest of the team probably isn't paying attention either, because we set the landscape, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the same way in youth ministry roles. I think it's very difficult for the youth leader because they're focused so much on building the youth department, making sure that programming is going, making sure that they've got the right scripture and the right message, and even balancing them, volunteers, and just making sure that they're equipped, that sometimes we're not paying as much attention to how do we just make sure that each and every student is being valued and included.
Yeah, so there are a couple of thoughts that you, in your description of a soccer team and a youth ministry, that come to my mind. And the first is, every coach is always told that there's no I in team.
Yeah.
Right? We are supposed to build this non-individualized approach to unity.
Yeah.
The problem with that is we lose sight of the individual life experiences that drew me into what's supposed to be equity as a team. And so while we're trying to say there's no I in team, so your individual response or your individual needs, that's not our goal to meet.
Yeah.
But that's not the way we work as humans. Because all of our experiences are different. Your experiences are different than mine.
Sure.
Whether it is race, culture, ethnicity, or even childhood trauma, we can see different responses from each person in a team setting.
Yeah.
Someone might run from a strong voice yelling across the field at them. Someone else might freeze because of it. Another person may say, that sounds just like my dad, and I know how to learn from that.
Absolutely.
Everyone responds differently. The other word that we often use is that we want youth ministry to be family. But guess what? Any kid in your youth group who has a nightmare at night, you're not walking into their room to make it safe.
Yeah.
So we keep using these words like team and family to create unity. And what we may need to do is to say that we want to reframe our conversations around team and youth ministry and family to focus in on self-awareness and others' awareness.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about with youth ministers and coaches. You need to go on a journey to become self-aware. How are you wired and how do you like to build community? And others aware. How do you start to read the room read the field well to see what voice students are giving to you, so that you can see and hear how either God is responding, if you're in that youth ministry context, or how your team can respond. If you want more of that,
that's good.
That's a conversation within the reachable reconciliation element, because our conversations are not framed about siloed vantage points like race, gender. They're instead moved toward conversations on how do we become self-aware, how do we become others aware, so that we can build relationships that are reconciled and stick together in teams and families and youth groups.
Love that. Love that. We'll see you next time.